bringing down civilization, when I talk about that, it's not a monolithic act. It's a billion different acts done by a billion different people. And part of my definition, actually my definition of bringing down civilization is depriving the rich of the ability to steal from the poor and depriving the powerful of the ability to destroy the world. Okay, that's nice, Derrick, but that doesn't alter the fact that there are people who are dependent upon this social system which is killing the planet. I mean, that's part of the problem, is that just like any good abusive situation, we have been made dependent upon the very system that's exploiting us. And part of the reason that we don't fight back more is because if your experience is that your water comes from a tap and that your food comes from a grocery store, not your head, not your heart, but your experience, if that's your experience, you will fight to the death to defend that system that brings you your food and water because your life depends on it. And similarly, if your water comes from a river and your food comes from a land base, people used to drink out of rivers, how quaint is that? If your experience is that your water comes from a river and that your food comes from a land base, you will fight to the death to defend that because your life depends on it. But we have all been so made dependent on this system, and it becomes really problematical. It's very nice, Derrick, but what are you going to do about this? Anyway, back to the original thing, that taking down civilization is not a monolithic act. It's a billion different acts with a billion different moralities. And so, for example, I don't care what your motivation is, if you blow up a children's hospital, that is an atrocity. I don't care if you're an anarcho-primitivist or if you're a member of the US military. That's just bad. There is no way you can make a moral case for blowing up a children. Oh, if you're bringing freedom and democracy to a country. Which, by the way, I figured out how to listen to George Bush's speech without going insane. Well, turn off the volume for one thing. But if you're not going to do that, another way to do it that actually makes everything perfectly clear is just do a word substitution. And I came up with this idea back when they did the whole freedom fries thing, when they changed French fries to freedom fries. It's great. All you do is word for word substitution. Every time George Bush says the word freedom, substitute the word fascism. Every time he says the word democracy, substitute the word corporate control. So we're bringing freedom and democracy to Iraq. Damn straight. Oh, I want to say something else too, and we're going to get back to the other, don't worry. And everybody in here, of course, by now certainly knows why my books are written in a nonlinear fashion. Anyway, this whole we thing, you know, we're bringing freedom and democracy to Iraq, is just so weird, because one of the things I think we really need to do is break that identification with the system and with those in power. That's like this friend of mine called me up not very long ago, and she said, how much longer do you think we're going to be in Iraq? And I said, we're in Iraq? Oh my God, I thought we were in Northern California. And she's like, okay. How much longer do you think our troops are going to be in Iraq? I said, I got troops? Holy shit, will they do what I tell them? If I tell them to take out the Grand Coulee, will they do it? And she's like, Derrick, this is why I only call you once every 6 weeks. Anyway, so you know, I don't care what your motivation is, you cannot make a moral case for blowing up a children's hospital. That's just an atrocity. I have to admit that line has never before gotten a joke or a laugh.
You have to go to Nicaragua.
I'm sorry?
You have to go to Nicaragua. You have to go to Nicaragua.
Okay.
Because they destroyed some hospitals.
Right. Well, but see, you can't make a moral case. Well, except if you're bringing freedom and... Okay, anyway, but on the other hand, it would be almost impossible to make a moral case against taking out cell phone towers. And cell phone towers are really nasty on any number of levels. They allow that jerk at the next table to yammer on when you're trying to eat. And then also, they kill between 5 and 50 million migratory songbirds every year. Cell phone towers do. And then probably worst of all, they put out those, what are they called? The electromagnetic waves, and like you gotta wear the aluminum beanies, and then it's like, I always forget which side goes out. And if I put the wrong side out, it makes the voices get really disturbing. Anyway, oh, and it's actually, I lied to you. when I said it's almost impossible to make a moral case against taking out a cell phone tower, okay, I can do it. So you got this woman. She's driving along late at night, all by herself, and her car dies. Huh, her car dies. Get that? I mean, cars don't die, they're not alive, cars conk out. And it's like the cars outside are going, yeah, buddy, wait till you get out here, we're gonna show you dying. Anyway, her car conks out, and it sort of clunks over the side of the road, and then she's got a cell phone, so she dials 911, and the cop says, I'll be right out to start your car. Go with it. And so she's sitting there waiting, and she turns on the radio, and she hears that this homicidal maniac has broken out of the homicidal maniac place. I think it's called the White House. And he's got a hook on his arm. And he likes to kill women who cars have conked out by the side of the road. Your older siblings didn't terrorize you with that story when you were a child? Anyway, so she's sitting there waiting, and then the cop shows up and she says, show me your hands. It's like, and then he starts the car forward, and she pulls away, she feels this sort of clunk. And then she gets home and she looks in the passenger side door, and there's this bloody hook embedded in the door. It scared me when I was a kid. It's a logical flaw, though. Why would he embed his hook in the door? Anyway, so thank God that she has a cell phone, because it saved her life. Thank God nobody took out that cell phone tower. But see, we can just as easily make a case for why we should take out cell phone towers. Because this woman's driving along late at night, and she decides to call her mother. And her mother rushes to the phone, because she doesn't call her mother very often. Her mother rushes to the phone, and then right when she gets to the phone, she trips and she breaks her neck. And she's able to gasp out, call 911. And so the woman calls, she has 2 cell phones, and so she dials 911, but then she's driving, but she's not holding onto the steering wheel anymore. And the car veers off the road, she runs over 3 orphans, and then runs over the last population of endangered salamander, and smacks into a tree. And the last thing she sees before she passes out is this hook gleaming in the moonlight. And the point, insofar as there is one, is that we can make up any hypothetical case we want to keep us from ever doing anything. And the truth is, once again, that on a real fundamental level, you can't make a moral case against taking out cell phone towers. Okay, that's nice, Derrick, but the truth is that when this culture falls apart, as this culture falls apart, a lot of people are going to die. Psych. Okay. My next answer is, who are we talking about? If we're talking about salmon people, they're like, bring that fucker down. Talking about polar bear people, they're like, yep. Prairie dog people, they're like, yep, yep, yep. What about subsistence farmers? Subsistence farmers around the world. It's like I asked my friend Anuradha Mittal, former executive director of Food First, if the people of India would be better off if the global economy disappeared tomorrow. And she said, of course. And some of the examples she gave is there are former granaries of India that are now exporting dog food and tulips to Europe. So there are people who are starving to death right now because where they used to get their food is now making cash crops. And of course, this happens the world over. So it depends who we're talking about. You know, it's like the indigenous people, the traditional indigenous people around the world would be better off immediately. The subsistence farmers, better off immediately. The landless being forced off their land, better off immediately. Rural poor, the world over, better off immediately. I mean, it's like, what is it? I'm going to make up this number, but it's like 30% of the people in the world have no access, have like never used electricity. It's some fairly high percentage, 30, 40%, something like that. I mean, so they're not going to be bothered one bit by the removal of the electrical infrastructure. So the rural poor, many of them would be better off immediately. The urban poor would be, well, the urban rich actually would be, I'm sorry, the rural poor would be better off immediately. The rural rich would be fine. They're going to have guns anyway. The urban poor are fucked. Well, in one sense, they would be in really bad, and of course in the long run they'd be better off because the system that's exploiting them would be gone, but in the short run they'd be really, really bad because the food is coming in to the city. But on the other hand, you want to talk about instant land reform? Remove US support for the governing people immediately, and you got instantaneous land reform. So I don't know. And then there's also the urban rich, but fuck them, they're the problem in the first place. Anyway, but okay, that's all nice, Derek, but that's not really helpful. Okay, here's another part, is that I can guarantee, this is actually more important, I can guarantee that 100% of the problems as this culture collapses are going to be because those in power, those who are already destroying the world, attempt to maintain that lifestyle as the world collapses. At any moment, those in power, whatever that means, could choose to have a soft landing. I mean, that's one of my secret fantasies, is that suddenly we start using all of this cleverness that we think we have to actually solve problems instead of make new ones. And that, you know, the feds start paying Weyerhaeuser not to deforest, but to reforest. I mean, I don't fucking care if Weyerhaeuser still gets the money. I don't care about justice in that sense. I just want forests. And so it's like they can even give the same goddamn subsidies, the same goddamn companies, and if it was moving the right direction, I wouldn't complain. It's like we always hear that the world's running out of water. We hear that all the time. You know, people are dying of thirst because we're running out of water. Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Goddamn, George Bush goddamn fucking bullshit. The world is not running out of water. Water is being stolen. 90% of the water that's used by human beings is used for industry and agriculture. It's like they always say, take shorter showers. Fuck. You know, all that does is annoy the people close to you. The same amount of water is used by municipal human beings as is used for municipal golf courses. Once again, 90% of the water is used for agriculture and industry. So people are not running out of water. Water is being stolen from them. And so it's like if somebody were to take out the Glen Canyon Dam, or if it were just to collapse on its own, I know that if the capitalist press is still around, it would bray as one that, oh my God, the people in the Southwest are going to now die of thirst. But it's like, first, I wouldn't want to hear one word of complaint so long as there existed a single irrigated alfalfa field, a single irrigated citrus orchard, a single golf course, so long as Las Vegas still existed, so long as there existed one swimming pool, I wouldn't want to hear one word of complaint. It's like one of the reasons that Dianne Feinstein says that they need to raise the Shasta Dam is because, this is a direct quote, it is Californians' God-given right to water their lawns. You cannot argue with that logic, except with explosives. And the FBI guy is going, except with explosives. So the point is that, I mean, we all know the numbers, you know, from Francis Moore Lepay and everything about how there is enough food to feed everyone, and we could have that soft landing. Those in power could choose at any moment. But it's like, that's nice, Derek, but that doesn't alter the fact that wanting to bring down civilization is going to kill a lot of people. Even if those decisions are made by those in power, it's still going to kill a lot of people. And I finally came up with an answer that I'm really happy with, and I want to share that with you now. You know, what do you do with the fact that no matter what you do, you're involved in mass murder? You know, because if you're civilized, if you're part of this system already, your hands are blood red. It's just you don't notice it usually. You know, and every action within the industrial economy is harmful, which is really fucked up too. I mean, that's another thing that's been stolen from us, is the ability to have a fine meal without it being destructive. The ability to simply live without knowing that you're destroying things by your actions. Anyway, what do you do with the fact that no matter what you do, you're involved in mass murder? And for now, I've got an answer. If you've gotten this far in this book, if you're simply anything other than entirely insensate, we probably agree that civilization is going to crash, whether or not we help bring it about. If you don't agree with this, we probably have nothing to say to each other. Hey, Lou Piniella got picked up by the Cubs. That's pretty cool. We probably also agree that the crash will be messy. We agree further that since industrial civilization is systematically dismantling the ecological infrastructure of the planet, the sooner civilization comes down, whether or not we help it crash, the more life will remain afterwards to support both humans and non-humans. If you agree with all this, and if you don't want to dirty your spirituality and your conscience with the physical work of helping to bring down civilization. Oh, did I start sneaking away again? Sorry about that. How long ago did I sneak away? Okay. Because I'll go back and just start over. So I'm holding in my hands the first draft of Star Wars. Anyway, if you agree with all this, and if you don't want to dirty your spirituality and conscience with the physical work of helping to bring down civilization, and if your primary concern really is for the well-being of those humans who will be alive during and immediately after the crash, then given, and I repeat this point to emphasize it, the civilization is going to come down anyway, you need to start preparing people for the crash. Instead of coming to my talks and attacking me for stating the obvious, go rip up asphalt and vacant parking lots to convert them to neighborhood gardens. Go teach people how to identify local edible plants, even in the city, especially in the city, so these people won't starve when the proverbial shit hits the fan. They can no longer head off to Albertsons for groceries. Set up committees to eliminate or, if appropriate, channel the additional violence that might break out. We need it all. We need people to take out dams. By the way, did you know that there are 2 million dams in the United States? There are 60,000 dams over 13 feet tall and 70,000 dams over 6 feet tall, which means if we only took out 1 dam a day of the 70,000, it would take us 200 years to take out all the dams. So people say to me, God, Derrick, you should just be you should be more compromising. You should compromise. Like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll compromise. 4 dams a day, it's only gonna take 50 years. Anyway, we need people to take out dams. We need people to knock out electrical infrastructures. We need people to protest and to chain themselves to trees. We also need people working to ensure that as many people as possible are equipped to deal with the fallout when the collapse comes. We need people working to teach others what wild plants to eat, what plants are natural antibiotics. We need people teaching others how to purify water, how to build shelters. All this can look like supporting traditional local knowledge. It can look like starting rooftop gardens. It can look like planting local varieties of medicinal herbs. And it can look like teaching people how to sing. The truth is that although I do not believe that designing groovy eco-villages will help bring down civilization, when the crash comes, I'm sure to be first in line knocking on their doors asking for food. People taking out dams do not have a responsibility to ensure that people in homes previously powered by hydro know how to cook over a fire. They do, however, have a responsibility to support the people doing that work. Similarly, the people growing medicinal plants in preparation for the end of civilization do not have a responsibility to take out dams. They do, however, have a responsibility at the very least to not condemn those people who've chosen that work. In fact, they have a responsibility to support them. They especially have a responsibility to not report them to the cops. It's the same old story. The good thing about everything being so fucked up is that no matter where you look, there's great work to be done. Do what you love, do what you can, do what best serves your land base. We need it all. That doesn't mean that everybody taking out dams and everybody working to cultivate medicinal plants are working toward the same goals. It does mean that if they are, each should see the importance of the other's work. Further, resistance needs to be global. Acts of resistance are more effective when they're large-scale and coordinated. The infrastructure is monolithic and centralized, so common tools and techniques can be used to dismantle it in many different places, simultaneously if possible. By contrast, the work of renewal must be local. I have a new catchphrase, which is dismantle globally, renew locally. To be truly effective, another catchphrase I have is protect your land base. You can't have sex without it. Anyway, to be truly effective, acts of survival and livelihood need to grow from particular land bases where they'll thrive. People need to enter into conversation with each piece of earth and all its human and non-human inhabitants. That doesn't mean, of course, that we can't share ideas or that one water purification technique won't be useful in many different locations. It does mean that people in those places need to decide for themselves what'll work. Most important of all, the water in each place needs to be asked and allowed to decide for itself. I've been thinking a lot again about the cell phone tower behind Safeway, and I see now how these different approaches manifest in this one small place. The cell phone tower needs to come down. It's contiguous on two sides with abandoned parking lots. Those lots need to come up. Gardens can bloom in their place. We can even do our work side by side. Okay, no segue at all. The next premise is the culture as a whole and most of its members are insane. I don't need to talk about that, do I? The culture is driven by a death urge, an urge to destroy life. I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes I'll just be sitting here, I'll be doing something else, and suddenly a vision of Angelina Jolie will appear before me. There's a couple of people turned around and looked. And she'll stand there, just sort of suspended in space. Makes me happy. It used to scare me back when she was with Billy Bob, because they weren't good for each other. You know that each one had a vial of the other's blood around their neck? It's really creepy. And then you know where she has his name tattooed? I'll bet she was wishing his name was Bob, or Ed. Bob is better than Billy Bob, actually. Speaking of genitals, did you know that Nicole Kidman does not like to wear underwear? I read that in the newspaper, so it must be true. Does anybody know what's the indigenous name for this place right here? Do you know what the indigenous name for this place is? That's the people, right?
Oh, yes, that's the people that live.
Okay.
The land of the Chinook.
I'm sorry?
The land of the Chinook.
The land of the Chinook. And what is that name in the indigenous language? Like where I live is called Tutnest. In the Tolowa language, it means meadow long. That's the particular place I live, which I'm not like showing this off. It's like, it took me 3 years or 4 years of living there, and I finally just asked one, and a Tolowa person. So the point is, I'm sorry?
Use the mic. Use the mic.
Sorry. The point is that it is literally insane that I know what is on Angelina Jolie's genitals and what is not on Nicole Kidman's. But it took me about 3 or 4 years of living where I do to learn that there was a massacre of about 250 Indians about 2 miles from where I live at a place called Yantakit. Another massacre of another 100 Indians or so at a place called Hawanket right over here. And then right over here there was another massacre at a place called Achilet. And I mean, it's crazy that I know that. By the way, oh God, so you're all here instead of watching the World Series. That's pretty fucking cool. What was the score before you left? Oh, I keep moving away, sorry.
I can just hold it.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's insane that I know that the Mets would have had a better chance if Pedro weren't hurting, but I can't name 10 species of edible plants and fungi who live within 100 yards of my home. Part of the reason that we don't defend the places we live is because we don't live there. We live with Brad and Angelina, and we live with Pedro and his hurt hip and his hurt toe, and we live with Kenny Rogers and the smudges on his hands. And okay, so like I said, I don't think I can name 10 species of edible plants and fungi within 100 yards of my home. There's blackberries, huckleberries, salal, thimbleberry, salmonberry, blackberry. Oh, and there's those big red mushrooms with the white dots. I was thinking, if I ate one of those, I could take out a dam I I could take out a dam with one finger. The 11th premise of the book is, from the beginning, this culture, civilization, has been a culture of occupation, and the government is a government of occupation. What does the government of occupation do? It moves in, it facilitates resource extraction and maximizes production. That's what they do. That's their job. What does the U.S. government do? Moves in, facilitates resource extraction, and maximizes production. You know, and all my American Indian friends are saying, so what the hell took you so long to figure this one out? I would like to read something about that. Okay, if Nazis or other fascists took over North America, what would we all do? Oh, we'd watch television, by gum. What would we do if they implemented Mussolini's definition of fascism? Fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it's a merger of state and corporate power. And what would we do if they then instituted laws allowing them to put a significant portion, say 1/3, of all Jewish males from the ages of 18 and 35 into concentration camps? What if this occupied country called itself a democracy, but most everybody understood elections to be shams, with citizens allowed to choose between different wings of the same fascist or following Mussolini corporate party? It's like, you know, the capitalist press used to just laugh and laugh and laugh that the Soviet Politburo was made up of like 99% members of the Communist Party. It's like, okay, so the U.S. Congress and House of Representatives is made up of what percent of members of the Capitalist Party? I think it's about 99%, with 1% absent. What if anti-government activity was opposed by stormtroopers and secret police? Oh, that's another of my secret fantasies, is the next time there's one of those like big WTO meetings or something, that the cops will turn around and they'll start shooting at the WTO representatives. We all have our fantasies. Because of course they have much more in common with us as in terms of class interest than they do with their masters. But the reason, of course, that can't happen is because the violence is only allowed to flow down the hierarchy, and for them to shoot at their masters would be violence flowing up the hierarchy. Anyway, what if anti-government activity was opposed by stormtroopers and secret police? Would you fight back? If there already existed a resistance movement, would you join it? Substitute the word African American for Jewish and ask yourself the same question, because of course about 1/3 of all African American males in the ages of 18 and 35 are under so-called criminal justice supervision. Anyway, would you resist if the fascists irradiated the countryside and poisoned food supplies, made rivers unfit for swimming and so filthy you wouldn't even dream of drinking from them anymore? What if they did that because, hell, I can't finish that sentence, because no matter how I try, I can't come up with a motivation good enough even for fascists to irradiate and toxify the landscape and water supplies? If fascists systematically deforested the continent, would you join an underground army of resistance, head to the forest, and from there to boardrooms and the halls of the Reichstag to pick off the occupying deforesters, and most especially those who get them their marching orders? I mean, what would we all do if space aliens came down, that's where they come from, if aliens came down from outer space and they started to vacuum the oceans, and they were putting dioxin in every mother's breast milk, and they were just, you know, clear-cutting the planet, they were changing the climate, and they were giving us like cool computer games and stuff. You know, what would we do? You know, I mean, we would grab our camo outfits, we would grab our AK-47s, and wrong audience. So am I like the only person here with an AK-47? I shared the stage with Ward Churchill a while ago, and I said the same thing. Am I the only person here with an AK-47? He was out in the audience when I was doing my talk. I said, am I the only person here with an AK-47? Just silence from the audience. And I hear this voice go, nope. I mean, seriously, what would we do if instead of it being, you know, the U.S. government, the corporations run by the U.S. government, what if instead the Iraqis had invaded? You know, the Iraqis were so close to invading. You know, what if they were Iraqis who were doing all this? You know, we would fight back. Okay. So maybe your sense of kin, your sense of skin doesn't extend to the natural world. Maybe you don't yet love the land where you live enough that you'll fight for it. But what if the fascists toxify not only the landscape, but the bodies of those you love? What if their actions put dozens of carcinogens into the flesh of your lover, children, mother, brother, sister, father? How many people in here have had someone you love die of cancer? It's about 80%, 70%. Would you fight back? What if the fascists toxify your own body? Would you still cling to the illusion that their edicts carry more weight than that brought to bear by their secret and not so secret police? Would you work for this regime? Would you teach others its virtues? Or would you fight back? If you won't fight back when they toxify your own body, when precisely will you fight back? Give me, and more importantly yourself, a threshold at which you'll finally take a stand. If you can't or won't give the threshold, why not? None of these questions are rhetorical. The questions are real. They are, at this point, some of the most important questions there are. So what I'd like to do is, I've got three more premises I want to talk about. Well, I want to do two premises. I want to bash pacifism, and then I want to bash hope, and then read two things real fast, and then we're done. Okay. Next premise. There are no rich people in the world, and there are no poor people. There's just people. The rich may have lots of pieces of paper that many pretend are worth something, and the poor may not. The rich claim they own land, and the poor are denied the right to make the same claim. A primary purpose of the police is to enforce the delusions of those with lots of pieces of paper. Those without the papers generally buy into these delusions almost as quickly and completely as those with. Those delusions carry with them extreme consequences in the real world. What I mean by this is Weyerhaeuser doesn't own any land. Weyerhaeuser doesn't actually exist. But insofar as we pretend it exists, we all agree that Weyerhaeuser owns land. But Weyerhaeuser doesn't own any land. It's like there's a bunch of cars out there, but they don't belong to anybody. And I can say this because, of course, my truck is like 500 miles away. But we all agree that this person owns this land, and this person owns this land, and these corporations own this much land. And did you know, by the way, that land ownership concentration in the United States land ownership is more concentrated in the United States than it is in so-called banana republics like Honduras? I don't remember the numbers. They're in Strangely Like War, but it's basically, oh, I'm not even going to make them up. But the rich own lots of land. The point is, that's just a cultural convention. We all agree that Weyerhaeuser owns land. Those agreements have consequences in the real world. I want to be really clear about two things. One is, I'm not saying there is no such thing as ownership of land. The Tolowa own the land where I live. They don't have a piece of paper that says it's theirs, but they own it. And the reason they own it is because they lived there for 12,500 years, and their blood is mixed with the soil. The other thing I want to be clear that I'm not saying that all cultural conventions are bad. What I'm saying is that with all the world at stake, we might start beginning to examine which of the cultural conventions we want to keep and which ones we want to get rid of. And allowing corporations to exist is one we might want to consider getting rid of. And allowing corporations to own land is one we may wish to get rid of. Okay, next premise. Those in power rule by force, and the sooner we break ourselves of illusions to the contrary, the sooner we can at least begin to make reasonable decisions about whether, when, and how we're going to resist. We'll skip the 14th and do the 15th premise. I love this one. Love does not imply pacifism. I get this book, they're two big books, and they really were they're originally supposed to be pamphlets. And you're seeing now, several hours later, why they ended up. And what it was going to be, I found that when I would do talks about fighting back, that the resistance, that the response by the audience was really predictable. And that sort of, a lot of mainstream peace and social justice activists and a lot of mainstream environmentalists, their response would be to put up what I've taken to calling a Gandhi shield. And they would say the words Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Dalai Lama again and again as fast as they can to keep all evil thoughts at bay. And then grassroots environmentalists would do the same thing, but then they would come up to me after the talk and they would say, "Thank you for bringing this up." And then other groups of people, like prisoners and family farmers, survivors of domestic violence, American Indians, radical environmentalists, I know I'm missing the poor, a lot of people of color would have an entirely different response, which is they would look at me like, "So can you tell us something we don't know? And let's go, bro." And I realized the difference was that for those latter groups, violence is not some theoretical question to be puzzled through. It's simply a part of life. That doesn't mean you participated in it, doesn't mean you don't participate in it, but it's not some abstract or spiritual question. Not to say that... I'm sorry?
That means you understand it.
It means you know it in your body. Yeah, yeah. And then the next part of it was that I found that a lot of the responses that I was getting were really stereotypical, not from those latter groups, but from the former group. There was all these cliches that were getting thrown out that the more I thought about them, the less that they meant. Like people would say, oh my God, Derrick, if you had enough love, you would never suggest fighting back because if you love, you don't fight back. And I don't think that love implies pacifism, and I think that Mother Grizzly Bears will back me up on this one. I grew up in the country, and in my life, I have been attacked by mother horses, cows, dogs, cats, geese, chickens, mice, hawks, eagles, hummingbirds, spiders, who thought I was attacking their babies. And if a mother mouse is going to take on somebody 8,000 times her size, what the hell's wrong with us? And then another one is, you can't use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. And I love Audre Lorde. She's great. A, she's not a pacifist, and anybody who ever says this in sort of a pacifistic sense has never read her essay, because it has nothing to do with pacifism. It has to do with we need a wide range of voices is actually what the essay's about. But as much as I love Audre Lorde, I'll tell you this much. She never worked construction, because it doesn't matter whose goddamn tools you use. You use my tools, you use your tools, master's tools, doesn't matter. And there's another problem with that too, which is it presumes that the house belongs to the master, but it's just a house. And it also presumes that the tools belong to the master. It presumes that violence is one of the master's tools. Those in power are trying to tell us that they own the land. They're trying to tell us that they own the water. They're trying to tell us they own genetic materials. I'll be goddamned if I'm going to give them violence too. And once again, I think Mother Grizzlies are going to back me up on this one. What's another one we always hear? Oh God, this one's embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. How many people in here have the book A Language Older Than Words? Okay, those of you who have that book, do you also have like a straight razor or a razor blade? Okay, what I would like for you to do is the chapter Violence Revisited, take the razor, cut the pages out, crumple them up, and throw them away. Put them in the fire, because, oh God, this is so embarrassing. It's like admitting I'm a compulsive masturbator, which I'm not. Okay, in that book, in that chapter, oh God, this is terrible. I actually say, that if you fight back, you run the risk of becoming like they are. Oh my God, it's like that's so stupid. I mean, does that mean that the woman who kills a rapist runs the risk of becoming a rapist? Does that mean that the tiger who kills a zookeeper runs the risk of becoming a zookeeper? Does that mean that Tecumseh ran the risk of becoming like the people who are stealing his land? It makes no sense. Or what's another one? Oh, this is the best one. And then I'll bash hope for a while. Violence never accomplishes anything. Okay, so if violence never accomplishes anything, what that means is that all the Africans who came over on the Middle Passage, they just jumped on the ships. And then when they're over here, they just worked in the fields for the hell of it. And what this means is that the American Indians, they just saw the white people and they said, hey, you want some land? Your way of living is way better than ours, so just take it. You'll treat it better than we do. And there's this great line by Robin Morgan. She says, anywhere in the world, any woman can be walking alone late at night, and if she hears footsteps behind her, she has reason to be afraid. And she calls that the democracy of fear. Do not fucking tell me that violence doesn't accomplish anything. It has systematically terrorized half of the population of human beings. And violence is dreadfully, dreadfully effective. That's why they use it. Okay, so a few years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine who works on toxics issues in Northern California, and she was crying, and she said, "This work's getting to me. It's breaking my heart, this environmental work. I can't take it." I said, "Yeah, this work really can get to you. It'll break your heart for sure. It'll do that." And then she said, "Dominant culture hates everything, doesn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it does, even itself." She said, "It has a death urge, doesn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it does." She said, "Unless it stops, it's going to kill everything on the planet, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it is, unless it stopped." And then she said, "We're not going to make it to some great new glorious tomorrow, are we?" And I said, "I've been waiting for you to say that." And the reason I said that to her is because about 12 or 13 years ago now, I was undergoing a similar collapse where I was just bursting into tears several times a week over the death of the salmon, sturgeon, bull trout, Selkirk caribou. And a lot of my environmentalist friends were saying, "God, Derrick, take some time off. You know, the problems will still be there when you come back." It's so funny. I can always tell activist audiences because they laugh at that, and non-activist audiences don't get the joke. Anyway, I knew that I didn't need to just take time off and then come back to the same old thing. I knew that I had to keep pushing, because if you're not going to cry about the death of the salmon, what are you going to cry about? If tears mean anything. And so I just kept pushing. And then one day I called this American Indian friend of mine, Jeanette Armstrong. She's an Okanagan writer and activist. And I said, "You know, this work's killing me. It's breaking my heart." She said, "Yeah, it'll do that." I said, "You know, the dominant culture hates everything, doesn't it?" She said, "Yeah, it does, even itself." I said, "It has a death urge, doesn't it?" She said, "Yeah, it does." I said, "Unless it stops, it's going to kill everything on the planet, isn't it?" She said, "Yeah, it is, unless it stopped." I said, "We're not going to make it some great new glorious tomorrow, are we?" And then she said the best thing she could possibly say, which is, "I've been waiting for you to say that." And the reason that was the best thing she could say is because it normalized my despair. It let me know that despair is an appropriate response to a desperate situation. And it let me know that sorrow is just sorrow and pain is just pain. And it's not so much the sorrow or even pain that hurts as it is my resistance to it. I can hold in my heart the understanding that we're really fucked and that life is really good. Okay, and I mean, there's this idea that if you really start to internalize how bad things are, that you have to walk around being miserable all the time. And it's like I got this letter from somebody once asking how my anger at the dominant culture affected my sex life. And I was really tempted to respond, "That's a question to which you will never know the answer." But I realized that what that question's about is that question presumes that anger is a shotgun, and that if I'm angry at the dominant culture, and if I'm angry at corporations, I'm angry at my friends. But the truth is, I'm angry at the things that make me angry, and I'm not angry at the things that don't make me angry. And I'm happy because of the things that make me happy, and I'm not happy because of the things that don't make me happy. What a concept. And so anyway, one of the really important things was that I realized that I could feel all those things, and it wouldn't kill me. But there's something even more important happened, which is that I realized that I could feel all those things and it would kill me. And there's a wonderful thing about being dead, which is that once you're dead, they can't touch you anymore. You can still sing, and you can still dance, and you can still make love, and you can still fight like hell, but they can't touch you. Not with threats, not with promises, not with violence, not with anything. The smartest thing the Nazis did was they made it so that at every step of the way, it was in the Jews' rational best interest to not resist. Would you rather get an ID card, or would you rather resist and possibly get killed? You want to move to a ghetto, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? Do you want to get on a cattle car, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? You want to take a shower, or do you want to resist and possibly get killed? At every step of the way, it was in their rational best interest to not resist. But I'll tell you something very important, which is the Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along. The Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along. The Jews who participated in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had a higher rate of survival than those who went along.
Take the streets!
Don't stop there. Keep that in mind over the next 10 years. Part of the reason that my mother stayed with my father was because there weren't battered women's shelters in the 50s and 60s. But another part of the reason that she stayed with him was because of the false hope that he would change. And false hopes bind us to unlivable situations, and they blind us to real possibilities. I mean, does anybody really think that Weyerhaeuser is going to stop deforesting because we ask nicely? Does anybody really think that Monsanto is going to stop Monsantoing because we ask nicely? Some Democrats brought me to do a talk somewhere, and God, it was so funny. It was close to home, so my mom came along, and it was so funny. They asked me, so what are you going to talk about tonight? And I said, they had dinner for me beforehand, and they said, what are you going to talk about tonight? I said, I'm talking about bringing down civilization. It was like dead silence. And then later on, during the dinner, one of the people saying, God, if we can just take over if we can just get a Democrat in the White House, things are going to be okay. And if we can just take over the House and the Senate, things will be okay. I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't mind taking over the House and Senate, but I mean it differently than you do. It's a joke, Mr. Gonzalez. Put away the electrodes. Anyway, so they're saying all this about, if we could just take over the House and the Senate. And my mom said, the Democrats are just as controlled by corporations as the Republicans are. And it was so funny, because it was just like my mom had just hiked up a cheek and farted. Because they, it's silence, and then noses are wrinkling. And then finally somebody says, could you please pass the hummus? It's really delicious. So what are the false hopes that keep us bound to the system? I mean, it's like Zygmunt Bauman said about World War II in his great book, Modernity and the Holocaust. He said in there that rational people will go quietly, meekly into a gas chamber if only allow them to believe it's a bathroom. And I would say that rational people will go quietly, meekly to the end of the world if only you allow them to believe that recycling is going to make a difference. So what are the false hopes that keep us bound to the system? What are the false hopes that keep you chained? But the problem isn't just false hopes, but it's hope itself. What is hope? I was bashing hope a few years ago, and somebody in the audience shouted out, what is hope? And it's like, I got no idea. I've been bashing it for years. I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I asked the audience, what's your definition of hope? And the definition they came up with is great, which is, hope is a longing for a future condition over which you have no agency. Hope is a longing for a future condition over which you have no agency. I mean, that's how we use it in everyday language. I mean, I don't hope that I eat something else tonight, because I'm kind of hungry. I mean, I know men are supposed to be afraid of commitment, but I'm going to just say this in public, that I am going to eat tonight. In fact, I don't even need to commit to it. I'm just going to do it. On the other hand, the next time I get on a plane, I hope it doesn't crash, because once I'm in the air, I have no agency. The point is that when we say, I hope that coho salmon survive, what we're saying is I have no power. I have no agency. What salmon need to survive? It's very, very simple. Salmon need 6 things to survive. They need for dams to be removed. They need for industrial logging to stop, industrial fishing to stop. They need for the oceans not to be murdered. They need for global warming to stop, which means that they need for the industrial economy to stop and the oil economy to stop. And they need for industrial agriculture to stop because of runoff. Those are all straightforward technical tasks. I didn't say they're not daunting. but they're straightforward technical tasks. When people say, gosh, how can we save the salmon? Well, it's real easy. What is impossible is to save the salmon and keep dams, industrial logging, industrial fishing. That is not possible. And so, once again, okay, if I say I hope that salmon survive, what I'm saying is I have no power. I do not hope that coho salmon survive. I will do whatever it takes to make sure the dominant culture doesn't drive them extinct. If they want to go because they don't like how they're being treated, and so they want to go away, I will say goodbye and I will miss them. But if they do not want to go away, I will not allow the dominant culture to drive them extinct. I will do whatever it takes. Okay, I want to read two things. One of them is a section that I think is the best written section in Endgame, and I actually didn't write it. It was written by a stream near my home. I was trying to write, for several days, I was trying to write, what would it be like to be a river? And I'm trying to write this for several days, and I finally realized how stupid that is, because why would I write what it's like to be a river? It's like, why would I write what it's like to be a woman when I can just ask you? So I go down to this stream, like 20 yards from my home, and I say, what is it like to be you? Which, by the way, I think is the fundamental question in relationships, and I don't think we ask that often enough, of lovers. What is it like to be you? Or of mountains, or of dogs, cats, salmon, anybody. What is it like to be you? Anyway, so I went down to the river, to the stream, I mean, and I said, what's it like to be you? Oh my God, literally 5 seconds, and this whole thing just poured out. I ran inside as fast as I could and wrote it, except one thing. I was running into the house, and the forest I was running through was like, hey, 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 what's it like to be us too? And so this is a section that was written by the forest and the river and the forest behind my home. Pretend you are a river. Pretend you are the mist who falls so fine, so gentle, that nothing separates water and air. You are the rain who falls in sheets, explodes onto the ground to leave pocks and puddles. You're the ground who receives this water, soaking it up, taking it in, carrying it deep inside. You are the cracks and fissures where the waters accumulate, flow, fall to join more water and more, in pools and rivers who move slowly through cavities, crevices, pores. You are the sounds and silence of water seeping or staying still. You are the meeting of wet and dry, the union of liquid and solid, where solids dissolve and liquids solidify. You are the pressure who pushes water through seams. You're the rushing water who bubbles from the earth. You're a tiny pool between rocks. You overflow, find your way to join others who, like you, are moving, moving. You're the air at the surface of the water, the joining of substantial and insubstantial, the union of under and over, weight and not weight. You are the riffle, the rapid, the tiny waterfall who turns water to air and air to water. You are the mist who settles on the soil. You're the plants who drink the mist, and you're the sun who warms and feeds them. You are the fish who feed on insects, who feed on plants, who feed on soils, who feed on fish. You're the fish who become soils, who become plants, who become insects, who become fish, who flow down the river. You are the river who joins other rivers to become a new river who's all the rivers and something else. You are the river. You do not stop at the banks where liquid turns to solid. You reach into the sky and into the soil. Water moves through rocks, comes up to form pools far from the fast flow where the rivers move together, seeps down to join still waters deep below the surface, waters who sleep and wake and sleep and mingle with the stones who are the river too. You are the river who's married to the mountains you've known since they were young, who've given themselves to you as you've given yourself to them. You are the canyons you nestle into, each year deeper than the year before. You are the forests who give you their fallen trees, and the meadows you flood and who feed you back their fruits and fine insects, who fly to your surface to be taken in by the fish who with their own bodies again feed the meadows. You are the river who feeds the ocean, who feels the tides pushing and pulling against your mouth, the waves mixing fresh and salt. You are that intermingling. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. You are the river. You've lived with volcanoes and glaciers. You've been dammed by lava and ice. You've carried log jams so large and so old they grow their own forests, with you running beneath. You've lived through droughts and floods. You are the river. You miss the salmon. You miss the sturgeon. You miss the ocean. You miss the meadows. You miss the forests. You miss the beavers and otters and grizzly bears. You miss the human beings. You are the river. You want them back. You want to feel the tickling of the sturgeon, the thrusting of the salmon. You want to carry food and soil to the ocean. You want to cover the meadows as you used to, and you want to give yourself to them, and you want them to give themselves to you as you've done forever and as they have too. Now, pretend you're a forest. You are the bark of trees and the hairy moss who hangs from them. You're the duff who becomes soil, who becomes trees, who becomes seeds, who becomes squirrels, who become owls, who become slugs, who become shrews, who become soil. You are the trees who cannot live without the fungi, who cannot live without the voles, who cannot live without the trees. You're the fire who cannot live without the trees, who cannot live without the woodpeckers, who cannot live without the beetles, who cannot live without the fire. You are the wind who speaks through the trees and the trees who speak through the wind. You're the birds who sing and the birds who do not. You're the salamanders, the ferns, the millipedes, the bumblebees who sleep on flowers, waiting for the morning to warm you up so you can eat and fly on home. You too have lived through drought and flood, hot and cold. You too miss the salmon. You miss the owls, the grizzly bears. You miss the rivers. You miss the human beings. You want them all back. You need them back or you will die. And finally, thank you. Finally, I want to talk very briefly about a tradition of the Cheyenne dog soldiers. It's called the picket pin and stake. Before a battle, a few of the bravest Cheyenne dog soldiers would be chosen to wear sashes of tanned skins called dog ropes. Attached to each dog rope was a picket pin, normally used to tether horses. During battle, the pin would be driven into the ground as a mark of resolve. Once the pin was driven, the dog soldier would remain staked to that piece of ground, even to his death. Retreat was no longer an option. The pin could only be removed when everyone was again safe, or when another dog soldier relieved him of his duty. It is time. I have driven my picket pin. I am staked out and willing to give in no more. Where will you drive your own picket stake? Where will you choose to make your stand? Give me a threshold, a specific point at which you'll finally stop running, at which you'll finally fight back. Stand with me. Stand and fight. I am one. We would be two. Two more might join and we would be four. When four more join, we will be eight. And we will be 8 people fighting whom others will join. And then more people and more. Stand and fight. The questions before each of us now are, what are your gifts and how can you use them in the service of your land base? What can you do? What does your land base most need from you? How can you achieve it? What do you want to do? And right now, perhaps most important of all, what are you willing to do? People ask me all the time, what do you want us to do with all this analysis? What do you want us to do? And I always say, don't listen to me. If you want to know what to do, go down to the Columbia. I don't know how to live sustainably. The Columbia does. It knows how to live here. It's lived here a very long time. If you want to know what to do, go down, ask the river. It'll tell you. And the real question is, are you willing to do it? Thank you very much.